everyone, I am Daniela Garcia and welcome again to a new edition of Encora Talks webinar. Our topic for today is from chatting to testing ChatGPT takes on QA. We have such an amazing speaker. His name is Cristian Castro. A seasoned QA engineer with over a decade of experience in QA, Cristian has been spreading projects at Encora as a senior QA engineer. Considered an expert in QA techniques and agile methodologies, Christian's in-depth understanding of mobile testing ensures he's at the forefront of test case designs and implementation. Hello, Christian. We're very happy to have you here. Welcome to Encora Talks.
Thank you, Daniela. So we can start our presentation. So for today, this is the agenda that we're going to have. We're going to talk about the general aspects about ChatGPT, the benefits and use cases for QA. We're going to have a demo. We're going to talk about the limitations and why QA engineers are still needed. And we are going to wrap up with some conclusions at the end. Well, first of all, what is ChatGPT? Well, ChatGPT is a natural language processing tool driven by AI technology that was created to hold human-like conversations and can answer questions and assist us on several tasks. The model runs on an architecture created by OpenAI called Generative Retrained Transformer, and that's the meaning of GPT on the name. Then, if we want to use ChatGPT, what are some considerations that we need to take? Where there is a limited ability to understand and respond complex questions. Sometimes the chatbot is unable to answer some questions that are worded in a specific way. So it's required to reword that question so we can receive the answers that we're looking for. The quality of the answers are often affected by the user's prompt. This means that the chatbot may not fully understand sometimes what we are asking to it. So he can generate inaccurate or incomplete responses. There is a limited understanding of context and background information. The chatbot is unable to understand the context or the purpose of my software application. So this can be a drawback if we're using the chatbot in a specific industry or domain. Data is limited up to 2021, exactly to September 2021. So if we ask something after September 2021, we're not going to receive any answer. Instead, we're going to receive a message saying that ChatGPT only has information up to September 2021. And lastly, ChatGPT does not provide sources for the responses. This means that we're not able to know where or what ChatGPT uses to generate the responses that we're receiving. And now we're going to talk about how we can benefit from ChatGPT. First of all, we can benefit in automation testing. We know that automation could be a time-consuming and repetitive task. So with ChatGPT, we can generate or test scripts based on the user requirements. User testing, with ChatGPT, we can simulate the user interactions with our software application, allowing the developers and the QA to mimic the user interactions of the application without actually having a real user. It also can help us with the bug detection. Sometimes some bugs can be difficult to reproduce, and it might be a challenge for the developers and from QA. So with ChatGPT, it can go through our software requirements and help us to generate the test cases that might cover a wide range of possible scenarios and conditions. The natural language processing of the ChatGPT can help us to go through the user's feedback and help us to understand the real reason of this feedback, since sometimes that this feedback can be a little bit weird. So we can use ChatGPT to help us to understand better this feedback, so we can address in a better way the issues. And also, we can use ChatGPT to identify patterns and trends in the data. We can share with the chatbot or results after an execution, so we can know what things can be improved in the future. We can also use ChatGPT for training and education. We can generate training materials and educational resources for new QAs or teams that want to expand their knowledge and upskill. Now, we're going to talk about some use cases of ChatGPT in the QA process. We can use ChatGPT to help us to write down the specifications for user stories. Sometimes we don't know how to write a user story. We know what we want to do with that user story, but we don't know how to write. So we can use ChatGPT with this task. We can use ChatGPT to generate the test cases for a better coverage using the software requirements, so we can assure that we're testing all the possible scenarios. We can ask ChatGPT to peer review or test cases, so we can ensure that we're covering a wide range of possible scenarios. We can create the steps for a test case following a design technique. Sometimes we might not fully understand a technique, so we can use ChatGPT to help us with this. And also we can use ChatGPT to forecast the time and the effort that will be required to execute a QA site. Gartner, which is a tech company and that is a tech research and consulting company, forecasted which areas in the software testing will be impacted by AI technology. They forecasted that test planning and test prioritization, test creation and maintenance, test data generation, visual testing, and test and defect analysis will be the most impacted by the use of AI tools. Now it's time for a small demo to show you how we can use ChatGPT. Okay, for this demo, we're going to use ChatGPT 3.5, and we're going to see how we can generate test cases using ChatGPT. We're going to ask ChatGPT to perform peer review for the test cases. And we're going to estimate some test cases using a specific design technique. We're going to estimate some test cases for a specific test type. And we're going to end our demonstration with a translation of the test cases to BDD. Okay, first of all, for the first one, we're going to use this prompt. Okay, let me go through the prompt. First of all, it's a really good idea to identify to ChatGPT as a quality assurance software engineer, so we can receive a more accurate results after chatting with a chatbot. Also, it's a good idea if we have a requirement to give it a name. This is because if we continue chatting with a bot, we can call the requirement instead of writing each time each requirement. So for the test generation part of that demo, we are going to simulate that we have a feature, a sign up page feature with the following requirements. We're going to have an email field that will have email format verifications and a max length of 50 characters. A password field that is 8 characters minimum, and it should include a lowercase, uppercase, a number, and a special character. And when we write down the password, it should be masked, and sign up button. And also we are going to indicate ChatGPT how we want these test cases. For example, in Encora, we use the following format: verify the app expected when the user do something. Okay, with this it can be adjusted for every need. So for this, we're going to use encode as format. So after going through the prompt, we're going to click on send. And as you can see, ChatGPT is processing our message. And we can see that we have several test cases. In this case, we have 20 test cases that test all the functionality based on the requirement. If we can go through very fast some of the test cases, displayed an error when invalid email format is used, when when we uses an email without the domain, with the incorrect domain, longer than 50 characters, a password less than 8 characters. So as you can see, we have several scenarios to test my feature. Take note that sometimes when the chatbot generate or test cases, as you can see, there is a bracket saying the expected. This is expected as well. So we will need to edit our test cases later to meet our format at the end. So as you can see, we have several scenarios, so we can ensure that we're testing all the possible scenarios in this feature. Now I'm going to ask ChatGPT to execute peer review of my test cases. So as I mentioned before, I'm calling only the requirement instead of giving the requirement each time. So I click on send. Okay, as we right now, this is live and we are having an incorrect response. As I mentioned before, sometimes the input might create this. So I'm going to change this. I'm going to say that this case is let's see if right now it's able to understand what I want. Okay, this time the chatbot is not understanding what I want for this input. So we are going to continue with the next one, so we don't lose more time. We're going to use the chatbot to estimate some test cases following a test case design technique. Okay, it looks like okay. We have our 3 test cases. For the first one, verify when the app accepts a valid email and the user enters an email with a minimum length, 1 character. Also, when we use the maximum allowed for the password, and when the password doesn't meet the minimum length. Okay, just to be sure, I'm going to just to do a double check because we are receiving some weird responses. So, okay, see. Okay, now we are going to ask the ChatGPT to estimate some test cases using this decision table. As we can see, the chatbot is processing the request and is generating our test cases using decision table. First of all, the chatbot create a table and write down the possible combinations that might occur in my picture. So after that, he created test cases for each test case or valid scenario in the decision table. Now we are going to ask the chatbot to create some test cases for a specific test type. In this case, we're going to ask the chatbot to create some test cases for performance. Okay, as we can see, we have these three test cases: a load testing test case, a stress testing test case, and an endurance testing test case. This is very helpful if we don't know which scenarios we can use for performance, or we are not we don't know where to start. So this is a good way to have a base of test cases for our performance testing. And lastly, I'm going to translate some test cases to BDD. That means behavior-driven test cases, and that this is very helpful because when we translate a test case to BDD, it is going to help everyone to understand a test case. It's very helpful for non-technical users, so they all going to understand the purpose of each test case. For example, we have the scenario when leaving the email field blank, an invalid email format, the email longer than 50 characters, and the password field blank. Okay, so we have several scenarios and with a description for each one, so everyone can understand how it works. And with this, we finish our demo, and we're going back to our presentation. Okay, what are some limitations of ChatGPT in the software testing? Well, possible influence of user prompts on the test case quantity and quality. As you can see, we have an issue with the estimation. So ChatGPT make respond very fluent and coherent responses each time. It might not fully meet the criteria I'm looking for. Maybe some of them be inaccurate or incomplete. ChatGPT is unable to understand code. Despite of ChatGPT is able to understand coding languages, it might not fully understand some structures or format that we use that are significant for us. So ChatGPT is not able to understand this. There is a lack of execution power. ChatGPT is not able to execute the code, but instead, ChatGPT suggests suggests how to execute this code, meaning that we need to implement the code manually. And there is an absence of contextual understanding. ChatGPT is not able to understand the context or the purpose of the software application. So we can receive some inaccurate responses when chatting with the chatbot. And now we're going to talk about 5 reasons why QA is still scored over ChatGPT. Well, us as QAs, we have the expertise and the experience in problem solving. We have a set of skills and a deep understanding of the quality assurance process that ChatGPT may overlook sometimes and is not able to replicate. We are trying to pay attention to detail because we have this set of skills and we understand the quality process. We are we are trying to pay attention to everything, even the smallest detail. We have the ability to identify the nuanced issues that ChatGPT may overlook. We are able to understand the context or the purpose or even the business goals that we are intending to reach with our software application. And ChatGPT may overlook this. We have the ability to offer feedback on user experience. I know that we can use ChatGPT to simulate user interactions, but us as QA, we can assure that how the user is going to use the application, and we are going to feel how it works and how it is the final customer feeling the application. And we have we are better at debugging because we understand the context of the box. ChatGPT, it may not fully understand the context of some bugs, and I know it's a great tool detecting simple errors. However, it might not fully understand why certain conditions a real user might generate. So we are going to see some issue in the software application. And to wrap up, we're going to talk about some conclusions. Well, ChatGPT is a very powerful tool that benefits the QA engineering. As we saw, ChatGPT can help us a lot in the process of QA. But we can't rely all in ChatGPT. We need to work in conjunction with ChatGPT because us as QA, we follow some tools and methodologies. So if we combine this, we are able to ensure that we will meet a high quality in the product. The use of ChatGPT might require a learning curve. This means that we need to learn how to talk with the chatbot, so we receive each time the response that we're looking for. The results could be affected by the user's prompt. We need to be careful and fully understand how the chatbot will interpret or prompts, so we can receive the answers that we're looking for. The ChatGPT can go through the user feedback and identify patterns and trends in the data. ChatGPT can help us to understand the user feedback, to help us to translate if we want to say, so we can address in a better way any issue that is occurring in our application, and also can help us to identify patterns and trends in our process so we can improve them in the future. And lastly, the chatbot can generate training materials and education resources that could be very helpful for all the members of the team that want to expand their knowledge or their upskill. Thank you for your attention.
Christian, for sharing all this knowledge and all this valuable information with us. We are now ready to start with our Q&A section. And the first question I have for you is, where else in the testing process can ChatGPT be used?
Well, we can use ChatGPT in all the stages of the QA process. We can use the ChatGPT in the planning that help us to uh, to determine the scope of the process. We can use in the specification, as we saw, generating the test cases, help us with the estimation of the test cases, help us to plan the cycle. Also, we can use ChatGPT in the execution because we can use the chatbot to forecast how long and it will take to finish an execution and the effort required for it. And also we can use the chatbot in the results section because it can help us to generate a basic report that we can use to send to the stakeholders.
Thank you, Christian. What is the difference between versions 3.5 and 4 of ChatGPT?
Well, as we saw, ChatGPT 3.5 is very useful, but there is a point 4 version. This, first of all, is a paid version that there is a monthly fee of $20. This version has more tools. Uh, it also is capable to accept visual inputs at the same time as text. In case of ChatGPT 3.5, only accept text or visual inputs on several different times. And a major thing for me, I think, is that ChatGPT point 4 allows multilingual. So it could be very useful if you are not an English speaker. So we can use that chatbot in other languages.
Thank you again. Thank you so much, Christian. And thank you everyone for joining us. Please keep an eye out for more webinars that we will be hosting soon. We also invite you to watch the recorded webinars we have posted on talks.incora.com. Thank you. See you in another occasion. Bye bye.